Before we get started, please like and subscribe. Let me know where you're watching from, and you can support the channel by clicking thanks or joining. I have always been the kind of person who double checks everything. Doors, windows, notifications on my phone. I live alone in a small apartment on the outskirts of Portland, a quiet place where nothing dramatic ever happens. That night was supposed to be no different. It was late autumn, the kind of night where the air feels heavier than usual and the silence presses against your ears. I remember because the power had flickered earlier and my phone battery was already low. I placed it on the kitchen counter while I showered, telling myself I would charge it afterward. When I came back into the kitchen, my phone screen was on. That alone was not strange. Phones wake up all the time. But the recording app was open, the red dot blinking softly. Recording. I stood there staring at it, trying to remember if I had opened it myself. I was certain I had not. I do not use the voice recorder often, only for grocery lists or reminders when my hands are full. I never leave it running. I stopped the recording. The timer showed 4 minutes and 12 seconds. My first instinct was annoyance. Maybe I had opened it accidentally. Maybe the phone glitched. I told myself there was a logical explanation. There always is. I almost deleted the file without listening. Almost. Something about the timestamp bothered me. It had started recording 2 minutes after I entered the shower. That meant it had been listening while I was alone in the apartment, while the water drowned out every other sound. I pressed play. At first there was only static, the faint hum of my refrigerator, the distant hiss of water through pipes, normal background noise. I relaxed slightly, embarrassed that I had even been nervous. Then I heard my own voice, muffled, far away, singing quietly off key as I showered. I smiled despite myself, proof that nothing was wrong, just a pointless, accidental recording. I was about to stop it when something else came through the speaker. A breath, slow, controlled, not mine. I leaned closer to the phone. My heart began to beat faster, but I told myself it was nothing. Air moving through the room. Interference. The breathing continued, close to the microphone, so close. I could hear the slight, wet sound of lips parting. Then a voice spoke, very softly, too softly. I could not make out the words at first, just a whisper sliding under the noise of the running shower. But there was no mistaking the tone. It was calm, patient, as if whoever was speaking had all the time in the world. I felt a chill move through my chest. The voice spoke again, clearer this time. I froze when I realized something impossible. It was standing directly behind the phone. The sound was unmistakable, the way voices change when they are close to a microphone. Intimate, personal, as if the speaker is leaning in deliberately. The whisper said my name, my full name. I did not move. My eyes locked on the screen as the seconds crawled by. The recording continued. The voice did not speak again, but the breathing remained. Slow, steady, unafraid. I listened to the rest of the file. The breathing stopped exactly when I turned the shower off. There was a faint click, like someone stepping back. The recording ended 10 seconds later. I stood in my kitchen for a long time after that, unable to convince my legs to move. My apartment felt different, smaller, as if the walls had shifted inward without my noticing. I checked every room. Bedroom empty, bathroom empty, closet empty, no sign of anyone. The front door was still locked. The windows were sealed shut. Nothing was out of place. I told myself, someone could not have been there. It was impossible, and yet the recording existed. I did not sleep that night. The next morning, I brought the file to work and listened to it again through headphones, hoping the office noise would make it seem less frightening. It did not. If anything, the clarity made it worse. That was when I noticed something I had missed. At the very end of the recording, after the breathing stopped, there was a whisper so faint I had not heard it before. I replayed it again and again. Eventually, I understood the words. "I am standing right behind you." I removed my headphones so fast they nearly snapped. I laughed nervously at my own reaction, drawing confused looks from my co-workers. I told myself it was a coincidence, a trick of the mind. But that afternoon, something else happened. I received a notification on my phone. Calendar reminder. No title. No description, just a date. 1 year ago, I stared at the screen, trying to remember what it could be. I did not use calendar reminders often, and never without details. When I tapped it, my phone lagged for a moment before opening. The reminder time was set for midnight. I felt my throat tighten. That night, exactly 1 year ago, I had not been in this apartment. I had been somewhere else entirely, and that was when I realized something far worse than the recording itself. The voice had not been reacting to me. It had been waiting. I tried to convince myself that what I heard was nothing more than an audio illusion, a coincidence shaped by fear and exhaustion. That was the story I repeated in my head as I drove home that evening. But the moment I stepped into my apartment, I knew something had changed. The silence was wrong. It was not the peaceful quiet I was used to. It felt deliberate, as if the space itself was holding its breath. I locked the door behind me and stood there listening. No hum from the refrigerator, no distant traffic, just stillness. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I pulled it out immediately, my heart jumping before the screen even lit up. No notification, no missed call, nothing, just the home screen staring back at me. I exhaled slowly and forced myself to move. That night I did not shower. I did not turn on music or the television. I left every light on and sat on the couch with my phone in my hand, watching the battery drain faster than usual. I told myself I was being cautious, not paranoid. At exactly 11:58, my phone buzzed again. This time it was real. Calendar reminder. The same blank notification from earlier, now marked as starting. 2 minutes. I stared at the countdown, my mouth dry. I had not set this reminder. I was sure of it. Yet the interface was unmistakably mine. Same font, same layout, same default tone. At midnight, the reminder opened on its own. The screen went white, then text appeared. "You were supposed to be here." I dropped the phone. It hit the floor face down and skidded under the coffee table. I did not pick it up right away. I waited, listening for something else to happen. Footsteps, breathing, anything, nothing. When I finally reached for it, my hands were shaking so badly I nearly pushed it farther away. The screen was normal again. No reminder, no message, no trace of what I had seen. I slept in short bursts that night, waking at every sound. Each time I checked my phone, it showed nothing unusual, no new recordings, no alerts. Until morning, I woke to find my phone. I know that sounds insignificant, but I had not plugged it in. I was certain of that. The charger was still wrapped neatly around the outlet exactly how I left it days ago. My phone battery read 100%, and the recording app notification was waiting. One new file, time-stamped 3:26 a.m. I listened to it sitting on the edge of my bed with the sunlight barely touching the curtains. This time there was no shower noise, no background hum, just silence for nearly 2 minutes. Then the breathing returned, closer than before. I could hear fabric shifting, weight adjusting, someone standing still, trying not to make a sound. Then the voice spoke. "You keep missing it." The tone was gentle, almost disappointed. I listened until the file ended, unable to look away from the screen. I felt as though if I did something wrong, moved too quickly, blinked too long, something terrible would happen. At work, I barely functioned. Every vibration sent panic through my chest. I checked the calendar app repeatedly, searching for any sign of the reminder. There was nothing until lunchtime. Another notification appeared. Calendar update. Event modified. I opened it with numb fingers. The same blank reminder. Now dated today. Time set for 11:58 p.m. Description added. Do not be late again. I left work early that day. I packed a bag, just essentials, laptop charger, clothes, toiletries. I told myself I was being smart. If something was wrong with my apartment, I would remove myself from the situation. I booked a cheap motel across town and checked in before sunset. For the first time since this started, I felt a hint of relief. New space, new walls, no hidden corners I was familiar with. At 11:50, my phone buzzed. Calendar reminder. Same event, same time, different location. I stared at the screen as the motel room lights flickered once, then stabilized. Text appeared slowly. This place is farther. At midnight, the lights went out. Not just my room, the entire building. Emergency lights glowed dim red along the hallway outside my door. I could hear confused voices, doors opening, someone laughing nervously. My phone screen stayed bright. Recording app opened, red dot blinking. I did not touch it. From the darkness behind me, a breath touched my ear. This time it was real. I felt it. Warm, close, patient. The voice whispered, "Tomorrow." And then everything went silent. I did not return to the motel after that night. When the sun came up, I left without checking out. I drove until the city thinned into long, empty roads bordered by trees stripped bare by the season. I told myself distance would help, that whatever was happening was tied to a place, a device. A pattern I could break by leaving it behind. I was wrong. By midday, my phone battery was at 98%. It had not dropped at all despite constant use. I turned off background apps, lowered the brightness. Nothing changed. At a gas station restroom, I tried something desperate. I turned the phone completely off. The screen went black. No vibration, no glow. I felt relief for the first time in days. It lasted exactly 12 seconds. The phone turned itself back on. The startup logo appeared, slowly followed by the familiar lock screen. I stared at it as if it had betrayed me. My hands were slick with sweat. A notification waited. Recording saved. Time-stamped 1 minute in the future. I did not listen to it. I could not. I threw the phone into the passenger seat and drove until my eyes burned and my shoulders ached from tension. Every mile marker felt meaningless. Wherever I went, the phone was already ahead of me. That evening, I reached my sister house. Emily lived in a quiet suburb with her husband and their 2 kids. Warm lights, toys on the lawn, the kind of place where nothing bad is supposed to follow you. She hugged me tightly the moment she saw my face. "You look terrible," she said, half joking, half afraid. I did not tell her everything. I said I had not been sleeping, that work was overwhelming, that I needed a night somewhere safe. She did not question it. That night I slept on the couch with the phone face down on the coffee table and every lamp turned on. The house creaked the way houses do, settling into the night. Normal sounds, familiar sounds. At 11:58, my phone vibrated. Emily's phone vibrated too, then her husband's phone, then a tablet charging in the kitchen. One by one, every device in the house lit up. Calendar reminder, same blank event, same time. Midnight. Emily sat up in bed upstairs. I heard her call my name. Before I could answer, every screen in the house changed at once. White background, black text. This was not meant for them. The lights went out. All of them. The house plunged into darkness, broken only by the cold glow of screens scattered through the rooms. I stood frozen, listening to my heart pound. Then a sound rose from the hallway. Footsteps, slow, careful, too many. Something moved past the living room doorway. I could not see it fully, only the suggestion of shape interrupting the glow from a tablet on the floor. The voice came from everywhere at once. "You brought witnesses," Emily screamed upstairs. I ran. I do not remember reaching the stairs, only grabbing Emily and pulling her and the kids into one room. Her husband slammed the door and held it shut as something heavy pressed against it from the other side. The phone on the dresser began recording, the red dot blinking calmly. The voice grew closer. "You were not supposed to share this." The pressure stopped. Silence followed. When the lights came back on, the hallway was empty. No marks, no damage. The phones showed nothing. No reminder, no recording, except mine. One new file. I left before dawn. Emily begged me to stay. I could not explain. I could not risk it. As I drove away, my phone buzzed gently. A message appeared. "Next time come alone." That was when I understood. This was no accident. This was an appointment, and I had already missed it 3 times. I spent the next day driving with no destination. I kept to back roads, avoided cities, avoided people. Every time I passed a sign welcoming me somewhere, I felt like I was being invited into a trap. My phone remained quiet. That silence was worse than the messages. By evening, I stopped at a roadside diner, the kind with flickering neon and cracked vinyl booths. I needed food. I needed to feel normal for 5 minutes. I sat where I could see the door and placed my phone face down beside my plate. Halfway through my meal, the waitress paused. "Sir," she said carefully, "do you want me to turn that off?" "Turn what off?" I asked. She nodded at my phone. "Your recorder. It's been blinking since you sat down." I flipped the phone over. The recording app was open. Red dot steady. Timer already past 12 minutes. I did not touch it. I paid in cash and left. In the car, I listened. At first, there was only the diner noise, clinking plates, distant voices, a radio playing softly. Then a chair scraped close to the microphone. The voice spoke low and clear. "You are getting closer." I drove until midnight. At exactly 11:58, the phone vibrated. Calendar reminder. Same blank event, but now there was a location, an address. I recognized it immediately. My old apartment, the one I lived in a year ago. The place I had moved out of suddenly without explanation. Memory hit me like cold water. That night, I remembered the invitation. A plain white envelope slid under my door. No return address. Inside a card. "You are invited. Midnight. 1 year from tonight." I had laughed and thrown it away. I was not there when the time came. Now my phone was correcting that mistake. I parked 2 blocks away and walked. The building looked unchanged. Dark windows, quiet street. I felt watched the entire time. Inside the lobby, my phone vibrated again. Recording started. I climbed the stairs slowly. Each step echoed too loudly. Outside my old door, the air felt heavy. The phone screen lit up. Event in progress. The door was unlocked. It had never been unlocked. Inside the apartment smelled empty. No furniture, no dust, as if it had been waiting. I stepped inside. The door closed behind me. Locked! The lights turned on by themselves. The phone lay warm in my hand. The voice spoke from it, not whispering anymore. "Welcome." The wall clock ticked loudly. Midnight exactly. Something moved behind me. I did not turn around. I finally understood. This was not haunting me. It was scheduling me, and now I was on time. The door locked with a sound that felt final. I stood in the center of the empty apartment, listening to the walls breathe. That was the only way I could describe it. A subtle pressure moving through the room, as if the space itself was alive and aware of me. I did not turn around. I could feel it standing behind me, not touching, not moving, just present. My phone vibrated once. The recording app stopped. The red dot disappeared. For the first time since this began, the phone went silent. The wall clock ticked loudly, filling the room with a rhythm that made my skin crawl. Midnight passed, and nothing happened. No voice, no movement, no sudden violence. Minutes stretched. I realized then that this was not a threat. It was a waiting room. I finally turned. There was nothing there. The apartment was empty, the same way it had been when I entered. Clean, featureless, unreal. My phone lit up again. Calendar update. Event completed. Before I could react, another notification appeared. New event scheduled. Same title. Different date. 1 year from tonight. My stomach dropped. I backed toward the door and twisted the handle. Unlocked. I left without running. Whatever was happening wanted me calm, wanted me aware. Outside, the night felt wrong. Too quiet. The streetlights hummed softly, and every window in the building remained dark. I got into my car and sat there breathing until my hands steadied. That was when the memories came back fully. The reason I had moved, the reason I never told anyone. A year ago, I had started hearing things, not voices at first. Timing. My phone would buzz seconds before someone called. Notifications would appear moments before events happened. It felt convenient, helpful. Then the reminders began. Small things. Leave early. Do not answer that call. Stay home tonight. Every time I listened, something bad seemed to avoid me. An accident on a road I skipped. A fight at a bar I stayed away from. I thought I was lucky. I thought technology was finally working in my favor. Then the invitation arrived. I ignored it. And that was the first time something went wrong. The night I missed the appointment, there was an accident. Not mine, someone else. A man died in the building hallway. They said he fell, but I remembered the sound. A breath behind me. The phone buzzed afterward. Late. That was when the reminders stopped helping. They started correcting. I drove until dawn. When sunlight finally broke across the road, my phone vibrated gently. Calendar reminder. Description updated. Thank you for attending. My blood ran cold. I pulled over and opened the recording app. There were dozens of files, all dated in the future, all labeled with times and locations. I understood then. It was not following me. It was training me, teaching me how to be in the right place, at the right time. To replace someone else. My phone buzzed again. New message. Next year you will not be late. I stared at the road ahead, knowing with terrible certainty that the appointment was not over. It had only begun. I tried to ignore the calendar after that. For weeks I lived without plans. No schedules. No reminders. I avoided clocks whenever I could. I let days blur together, hoping that if time became meaningless, the thing inside my phone would lose its grip on me. It did not. The reminders returned slowly, not as notifications, as suggestions. My phone would vibrate once while the screen stayed dark. When I unlocked it, there was nothing new. No alerts, no messages. But minutes later, something would happen. A stranger would cross the street just before a speeding car passed where I would have been. A store would close early, forcing me to leave moments before a robbery. It was subtle, careful, protective. That terrified me more than the threats ever had, because it meant the system was still running and it still needed me alive. One afternoon, I finally broke. I walked into a public library and sat between two strangers with my phone in my lap. I opened the recording app and pressed record myself. My voice shook as I spoke. "Who are you?" I waited. The silence stretched long enough for me to feel foolish. Then the phone grew warm. The voice answered. "We are the space behind the signal." The words were calm, familiar, almost kind. I swallowed. "What do you want from me?" A pause. Consistency. My chest tightened. "You are late sometimes." It continued. "That causes gaps. Gaps create accidents." I realized then what it was saying. It was not killing people. It was preventing chaos, redirecting outcomes, using me. I left the library shaking. That night, the calendar updated again. New event. Description added. Training phase nearing completion. I stopped sleeping. Dreams bled into waking moments. I would wake up already knowing what time it was without checking a clock. My body adjusted before my mind. Weeks passed. Then the phone rang. An actual call. Unknown number. I answered. The voice was not whispering anymore. Tonight you will see. See what? What happens when you choose? The call ended. The calendar glowed. Event scheduled. Midnight. Location attached. Not an address. A set of coordinates. I drove there under a sky heavy with clouds. The place was an overpass above an empty stretch of highway. Cars roared below, moving fast and unaware. My phone vibrated gently. Recording started. I stood at the edge, gripping the railing. A man stepped beside me. I had not heard him approach. He looked tired, confused. His phone buzzed. He frowned. Late, he muttered. I knew then he was the replacement. The voice spoke softly through my phone. Choose. The man leaned forward. I reached out instinctively. Time stretched. My phone vibrated once. Suggestion accepted. The man stepped back, blinking as if waking from a dream. He looked at me confused, then left without a word. I collapsed against the railing, gasping. The phone buzzed again. Well done. I drove home shaking. I had saved him, but I knew the truth. I had passed the test, and the training was over. After that night on the overpass, my life became quiet in a way that felt artificial. No more panic, no more sudden fear, just direction. Each morning I woke a few seconds before my alarm, even when I forgot to set one. My phone rested beside me, warm as if it had never fully powered down. I no longer checked the calendar. I did not need to. I knew the reminders were inside me now. I would pause before intersections without thinking. I would hesitate before answering certain calls. I would leave places early or arrive late with no explanation I could articulate. And every time something bad happened nearby, it happened somewhere else. Never to me. The news became harder to watch. Accidents, faults, sudden deaths labeled as unfortunate coincidences. I started to recognize the patterns. Times, locations, gaps. I was not the only one. One evening, I received a message that did not come from my phone. It came from my laptop, an email with no sender. Subject line, "Did you feel it too?" The body contained only a single line. The reminders stopped helping when I refused to listen. My hands trembled as I typed a response. "Who is this?" The reply came instantly. Someone who missed their appointment. We met 2 days later in a crowded coffee shop. His name was Daniel. He looked hollow, like someone who had survived something by accident and never forgiven himself for it. "They let me go," he said quietly, stirring his drink over and over. I asked what he meant. I stopped listening. The protection ended. He showed me his phone. The calendar app was gone, deleted, along with dozens of contacts and photos. I tried to destroy mine once, he said. It did not stop. It only found another way. I felt cold. "They are not choosing randomly," Daniel continued. "They are selecting people who hesitate, people who question, people who notice gaps, people like us." That night my phone buzzed. Calendar reminder, new event, description, observer interference detected. I felt a pressure behind my eyes. Daniel did not come home from the coffee shop. The next morning his name was trending. Accidental fall from a parking structure. I did not need to check the time. I knew exactly when it happened. That was the first time I refused. The next reminder came while I was awake. Location, busy intersection, rush hour. I stood there watching people cross, laughing, talking, unaware. The phone vibrated gently. Choose. I stepped back. A car ran the red light. Someone screamed. I did not look. My phone went cold. That night, the calendar updated. Event failed. For the first time, the voice returned without being asked. Disappointment carried weight. Correction will occur. I knew then, if I did not choose, would choose for me, and the cost would be higher. The silence after my refusal did not last long. By morning, my phone felt heavier than usual. Not physically heavier, but weighted with intention. When I picked it up, my thumb hovered over the screen, unsure of what I was allowed to touch anymore. The calendar was still there, but it looked different. The dates ahead were no longer empty. They were filled. Every hour, every minute. Dense blocks of obligation stretching weeks into the future. I scrolled. My name appeared again and again, tied to locations I recognized, and some I did not. Intersections, hospitals, parking garages, train platforms, each marked tentative. I knew what that meant. Warnings began immediately, not vibrations. Pain, a sharp pressure behind my eyes when I ignored a suggestion, a sudden wave of nausea when I stayed somewhere too long. The system no longer nudged, it corrected. At work, I collapsed in the hallway, clutching my head as alarms rang around me. In the emergency room, the pain stopped the moment I agreed to leave. The calendar updated, compliance restored. That night I dreamed of standing behind myself, watching my own phone glow in the dark, watching my hands move without me. I woke knowing where I needed to go. A hospital parking structure downtown. Rush hour. I stood on the top level, overlooking traffic far below. Sirens echoed in the distance. My phone vibrated calmly. Select candidate. I saw her then, a woman standing near the edge, crying quietly into her phone. I knew if I did nothing, she would fall. If I intervened, someone else would. The phone pulsed. Hurry. I stepped forward, spoke softly. She turned startled. I said nothing that mattered, only enough to break the moment. She stepped back, safe. My phone went cold. Behind me, something screamed. Metal shrieked. A car below swerved and crushed a pedestrian. The sound echoed up the concrete. I dropped to my knees. The calendar updated. Event resolved. Optimal outcome achieved. I vomited. That night the voice spoke without the phone. From behind me, "You are learning." I did not turn around because I knew what would be there. Not a monster, not a shadow, but me, standing perfectly still, waiting. By the time I realized I was disappearing, it was already too late. People still spoke to me. Cashiers handed me receipts. Coworkers nodded when I passed. But something fundamental had shifted. Conversations slid off me as if I were slightly out of focus. Names slipped my mind moments after hearing them. Even my own reflection felt delayed, like it was catching up. The phone never left my side anymore. I stopped carrying a wallet. I stopped checking messages from friends. The calendar filled every space those things once occupied. Each morning began with alignment. I would wake knowing exactly how long I had slept, how many minutes I had to dress, which route to take, If I hesitated even slightly, a pressure built in my chest like a warning. I followed. The city changed when you start seeing it through schedules. Every street corner became a node, every crowd a variable. I learned to recognize people marked for correction not by their faces but by timing. They arrived too early or too late. They lingered where they should not. I started seeing myself in them. One afternoon, I noticed something impossible. The calendar contained events labeled with my name, but I could not remember agreeing to them. Not future events, past ones. Times I knew I had been alone. Times I had been asleep. Recordings existed to prove I had been somewhere else. I listened to one. The audio was clear. My voice, calm, giving instructions. I felt sick. That night I followed an event to a subway platform. Crowded, loud, normal. My phone vibrated once. Observe only. I stood near a pillar, watching the flow of people. Trains arrived and departed. Time stacked neatly. Then I saw him, a man staring at the tracks too long. His phone buzzed. He frowned. I knew that look. Confusion before compliance. The pressure behind my eyes flared. I stepped forward without deciding. I stood behind him, very close. I breathed. He stiffened, turned, saw me. I whispered, not words. Timing. He stepped back. A train screamed past. The calendar updated. Intervention successful. I staggered away, shaking. I had done it without the phone. That was when I heard the voice again. Not behind me, inside. Good. That night I searched my apartment. Every mirror, every shadow. I found nothing, but when I slept I dreamed of standing behind myself, holding a phone that was not mine. In the dream, I spoke my own name and woke to find a new event scheduled. Title: Transition complete. I understood. The thing behind the phone was no longer behind me. It was becoming me. There was a point when memories stopped arriving in order. They came instead as fragments triggered by movement and timing. A crosswalk light changing too fast. An elevator arriving just as I stepped forward. Every correct moment felt familiar, as if I had already lived it once. I no longer remembered my childhood clearly. Faces from old photos looked like actors playing a role I once studied. Names felt optional. The phone remained. Sometimes I wondered if it was still there at all, or if I simply believed it was. My hand would reach for it automatically and feel the familiar weight, warm, waiting. The calendar no longer showed dates. It showed flow. Colored blocks shifted in real time, responding to movement across the city. I could see pressure points forming, delays accumulating like stress fractures. I understood now why hesitation mattered. Hesitation created forks. Forks created loss. The voice did not speak often anymore. It did not need to. I moved when I was supposed to move. Stopped when I was supposed to stop. The first time someone thanked me, I did not understand why. A woman grabbed my arm at a bus stop, tears streaming down her face. "You saved my life," she said. I searched her face. I did not remember her, but I remembered the timing. She let go and walked away shaking. The calendar updated. Positive reinforcement. That phrase unsettled me. Reinforcement meant repetition. I began noticing others like me, people who stood too close without realizing it. people whose phones glowed even when the screens were dark. We did not speak. We did not need to. We adjusted around each other instinctively, like parts of a larger mechanism. One night, the phone vibrated harder than usual. A full alert. Rare. The calendar zoomed outward. City level, then region, then beyond. I saw networks overlapping. Thousands of nodes. Thousands of us. The voice returned. Transition complete. Your predecessor has concluded. Images flooded my mind. The man on the overpass. Daniel. Others I never met. All standing where I once stood. Late. Corrected, replaced. I felt something break inside me then. Not fear, grief, for a version of myself that still believed in coincidence. The phone vibrated again. New role assigned. Description, primary local adjuster. I understood the final truth. The thing behind the phone was never singular. It was a process, and now I was part of it. That night, I stood in my apartment and placed the phone on the counter. The recording app opened. The red dot blinked. I stood behind it. I spoke very softly, right on time. Perspective changes when you stop thinking of yourself as a person. I no longer wake up wondering how I feel. I wake up aware of load, pressure, probability. The city breathes in patterns now, and I breathe with it. When I move, things align. When I pause, tension builds. The phone is no longer an object. It is an interface. I see before things happen, not visions, not prophecy. Momentum, people leaning toward decisions they do not know they are about to make. Missed trains, unanswered calls, half seconds that decide outcomes. Every correction feels clean, necessary. When I stand behind someone, I feel their timing first. A pulse, a rhythm slightly off. That is how I know. The calendar no longer asks. It assigns. Hospitals fill my mornings. Intersections, my afternoons. Late nights belong to bridges and platforms where hesitation collects. I remember being afraid of this. That memory feels academic. There are others now, new ones. I feel them before I see them. Untrained, unstable. Their phones buzz too often. Their fear leaks into the signal, creating noise. They are candidates. I do not approach them immediately. Observation comes first. One woman checks her phone every few seconds, her breath shallow. She keeps arriving early, then waiting. Gaps form around her like ripples. Dangerous. I schedule her. Midnight. Parking garage. She will think it is coincidence. That is how it always begins. Sometimes I remember my sister. Her face appears without context when I pass houses filled with light. I wonder briefly what would happen if I went inside. The pressure answers. Deviation not permitted. The thought dissolves. At night I record. I leave messages for those who will come after, not warnings, instructions. Be on time. Do not hesitate. Do not bring witnesses. They will understand eventually. Someone always does. Tonight I stand in an apartment watching a phone glow on a counter. A man is showering. I wait. I remember exactly when they start noticing. It is never the first reminder. Everyone dismisses that. A glitch, a coincidence, a lucky guess by a machine that knows them too well. The moment that matters comes later, when silence stretches just long enough to feel intentional. Tonight, it is her. She lives alone in a narrow apartment with thin walls and neighbors she never speaks to. Her phone battery drains faster than it should. She tells herself it is age. Where? Nothing personal. I stand where she cannot see me. The phone rests on the counter. The recording app opens. The red dot appears. She does not touch it. In the beginning, I do nothing. I let the world teach her. She leaves 5 minutes late and misses a bus that later crashes. She pauses at a crosswalk, and a car runs the light exactly where she would have been. Protection first. Trust grows faster that way. Her sleep changes. She wakes moments before alarms. She dreams of clocks without numbers. When she checks her phone, the calendar has added reminders she does not remember creating. She deletes them. They return. I remember doing that. I remember the fear. That memory is thin now, like a photograph left in sunlight. Tonight, she listens to the recording. At first, she hears nothing, then her own movements, breathing, fabric shifting, then the sound that matters, a breath that is not hers. She freezes. Her pulse jumps. I feel it in the timing, in the way probability tightens around her chest. The whisper comes soft. Her name. She turns. There is nothing there. There is never anything there at first. The calendar lights up. A single event. 1 year from tonight. She laughs nervously. I remember that laugh. It is always the same. I schedule the next phase carefully. Not too fast, not too slow. Late enough that she doubts herself. Soon she will try to tell someone. They never listen. When fear spreads, it creates interference. Noise. Accidents. I will correct that. I watch her pacing the apartment, phone clutched in her hand. She whispers to the empty room. Is someone there? I do not answer. Not yet. Training requires patience. At midnight, her phone vibrates. The recording stops. A message appears right behind you. She does not turn around. Good. She does not accept it the way the others did. That is what makes her dangerous. By the third reminder, she begins testing the system, turning her phone off for hours, leaving it behind when she goes out, borrowing other devices. She documents everything in a notebook, as if proof alone can protect her. I watch patiently. Resistance is expected. When the reminders stop protecting her, she notices immediately. A glass shatters inches from her face. A bike swerves onto the sidewalk, missing her by a breath. Chaos leaks back in. She smiles then, as if this confirms something. The calendar updates. Event accelerated. She tears the phone apart one night. Battery out, screen cracked. She sleeps with it in another room like an animal locked outside a door. At 3 in the morning, she wakes choking, pressure on her chest. The phone vibrates through the wall. She crawls toward it, gasping. And the moment her fingers touch the casing, the pressure vanishes. She cries. I remember crying. The next day, she goes to the police. They listen politely. They suggest stress, sleep deprivation. When she shows them the calendar, the dates are gone. The system hides when observed. That night, she makes a decision. She goes to a crowded place, loud, bright, full of witnesses. She believes this will protect her. It never does. The reminder arrives anyway. Midnight, mall parking lot. She refuses. She stays inside, surrounded by people. At 11:59, the fire alarm goes off. Panic spreads fast. People run, gaps open. She is pushed toward an exit she did not choose. Outside, the air is cold and empty. The phone vibrates. Correction required. She screams into the device. Leave me alone. For the first time, I speak to her directly. Soon, her voice breaks. She understands then. Not the rules, the scale. She was never meant to escape, only to replace. I schedule the final lesson. 1 year from tonight, she will be ready, or she will not. Either way, the system continues. The year passes differently for her. Time slows in the wrong places and races where it should not. She counts days by how often her phone vibrates without lighting up. She learns the language of pressure, the ache behind the eyes, the tightness in the chest, the nausea that blooms when she delays. I watch her adapt. She stops making long-term plans, stops buying food in bulk, stops imagining a future that extends past the next reminder. This is how it begins for everyone. Acceptance is not surrender. It is alignment. She tries one last strategy. She surrounds herself with people constantly. Friends, co-workers, strangers. She sleeps with the television on and the lights burning. She believes noise can drown timing. It cannot. The calendar updates quietly. Final preparation phase. She sees it this time, does not delete it, does not scream. She sits on the edge of her bed, holding the phone like something fragile. I feel a flicker of something old, regret perhaps. That night she dreams of standing in a long hallway lined with doors. Every door is marked with a time. Some are already open, some are sealed. One at the end glows brighter than the rest. When she wakes, she knows which door is hers. The final reminder arrives 3 days early. A mercy. She drives to the location before midnight, an abandoned office building downtown scheduled for demolition. Empty, forgotten. Perfect. She stands in the lobby while dust drifts through the light. Her phone vibrates. Recording started. She whispers, "I know why you chose me. I wait because I hesitate," she says. "Because I notice." "Yes," I answer. She closes her eyes. "If I go through with this, do people live?" I pause. "As many as possible. That is enough." At midnight, she walks deeper into the building, following instructions that no longer need words. I do not follow. I do not need to. The system adjusts. When the calendar updates again, her name is gone. Replaced. I feel the network settle. Somewhere a phone vibrates in an unfamiliar hand. After she is gone, the city exhales. The pressure that once bent around her path smooths itself out. Accidents redistribute. Near misses return to coincidence. From the outside, nothing has changed. That is always the measure of success. Inside the system, everything shifts. I feel it immediately. A weight lifts from one side and settles on another. A familiar sensation like handing off a burden you have carried too long. Somewhere nearby, a phone warms in a new palm and the cycle continues without interruption. I do not mourn her, not in the way people mourn. Grief is inefficient, but I remember her precision, the way she learned to pause without freezing, to move without rushing. She adjusted faster than most. That matters. my role expands. The calendar stretches outward again, filling with names I have not learned yet. The network hums with low-level tension. Cities overlap like transparent maps, each demanding balance. I am no longer alone in this layer. Others like me move through adjacent zones. We do not meet. We do not speak. Our adjustments ripple outward, intersecting briefly before separating again. Sometimes I sense hesitation in them. That is when I intervene. I leave recordings, not warnings. Corrections. Be earlier. Wait 3 seconds longer. Do not turn around. They comply. Eventually, tonight I walk through a neighborhood of small houses with lights glowing warmly behind curtains. Children laugh somewhere distant. A dog barks. Normality is fragile. I stop outside one house. Inside, a man sits alone at a kitchen table, staring at his phone. His leg bounces. His timing is already unstable. I feel the familiar pull. Candidate identified. The calendar opens. I do not rush. Rushing creates noise. I schedule the first reminder weeks away, far enough that he will forget, close enough that the system can begin shaping probability around him. I stand behind him long enough for the recording to capture breath. Not enough for fear, just awareness. The phone vibrates gently. I step back. The man exhales without knowing why. Somewhere far away, another adjuster completes a handoff. Another name disappears. Another role fills. The process endures. That night, I return to my apartment and place the phone on the counter. The red dot blinks. I speak softly. You are not late. You are exactly where you need to be. Anomalies always begin small, a fraction of a second out of place, a reminder that arrives too early, a vibration that lingers longer than necessary. The system flags them quietly and routes them to me. Tonight there is one. A candidate receives the first reminder and does not react. Not fear, not confusion, nothing. His timing does not tighten. Probability does not bend around him. He continues his evening unaffected. That should not be possible. I observe. He lives alone in a studio apartment with no pictures on the walls. His phone sits face down on the table untouched. When it vibrates, he glances at it and then looks away. The calendar updates. No response detected. I feel resistance ripple through the network. Not rebellion. Absence. I move closer. I stand behind him long enough for the recording to capture breath. Still nothing. He does not flinch. For the first time since I assumed this role, I feel uncertainty. I schedule a stronger correction, a near miss, a controlled accident. The street light fails as he crosses. A car brakes hard inches from his leg. He does not jump. He smiles. Later that night, he opens the recording, listens, nods, as if confirming a theory. He speaks aloud. You are late. The words land wrong. Timing stutters. The network hesitates. I feel eyes turn toward me from adjacent zones. This candidate is not aligning. He is anticipating. The calendar flashes. Escalation required. I intervene directly. I speak. Who are you? He answers without fear. Someone who has been waiting. Memory surfaces uninvited. The first invitation, the one I ignored. A thought forms. Impossible. The system reacts violently. Events reorder. Names vanish and reappear. Pressure spikes across the city. The voice returns, not calm but strained. Stabilize. I hesitate. just once, and the anomaly grows. The moment I hesitate, the system reacts, not with alarms, with silence. Every calendar event freezes. The flow I have learned to read goes flat like a heart monitor, gone still. For a breathless instant, the city exists without guidance. Then the consequences arrive. Accidents stack, not the small correctable ones, the large ones. Multi-car collisions, falls from height, missed signals compounding into catastrophe. Pressure surges through me like static. Stabilize repeats everywhere. I move too late. The anomaly walks freely through the gap I created. He is not running. He is not hiding. He moves as if the city has finally slowed enough for him to breathe. I follow. Each step feels heavier. My timing is no longer perfect. The phone vibrates out of sync with my pulse. We meet in an underground transit tunnel closed for repairs. Concrete walls, flickering lights. He smiles when he sees me. "You finally stopped adjusting," he says. I demand his name. He laughs softly. "I was you before the invitation, before you decided being late meant you deserved correction." Memory tears through me. The night I ignored the card, the accident, the man in the hallway, the moment the system learned hesitation could be harvested. "You built this," he continues, "not the process, the permission." The phone vibrates violently. Override initiated. I feel the network trying to reclaim me. Commands flood in faster than I can process. Terminate anomaly. I look at him. He is calm, because he knows if I obey, the system survives. If I hesitate again, it collapses. I lower the phone. For the first time in years, I choose no timing at all. The lights shatter. The tunnel screams. Above us, the city convulses. And somewhere, millions of phones go dark. When the system goes dark, the world does not end. It stumbles. The first hours are quiet, too quiet. People stand still, staring at phones that no longer respond. Alarms do not ring. Traffic lights blink into confusion. Schedules dissolve. I feel lighter and empty. Without the pressure of alignment, time becomes heavy again. Every second stretches unevenly. I am forced to decide where to place my feet without guidance. The freedom is suffocating. Accidents follow, not because something is pushing them, because nothing is stopping them. I walk through the city, watching near misses become impacts. A bus skids through an intersection. A woman slips on a stair she has walked 1,000 times. Timing collapses into randomness. People look around confused. They do not know what they have lost. I should feel relief. Instead, I feel guilt. The anomaly is gone. Whether he survived the collapse or dissolved into it, I cannot tell. His presence is no longer separate from the noise. At dawn, I find myself back at my old apartment building. The lobby is dark. No cameras, no glowing screens. I climb the stairs, slowly counting breaths, the way I used to count seconds. Inside my former apartment, dust coats the floor. It smells abandoned, real. I sit on the kitchen floor and wait for a vibration that never comes. For the first time in years, my phone is just a phone. No calendar events, no recordings, no red dot. I sleep. When I wake, it is because someone is knocking. A man stands in the hallway holding his phone. It is dead. He asks if mine works. I shake my head. He looks relieved. That night, the news reports outages worldwide, communication failures, infrastructure strain. They call it a cascading technical event. They do not mention the deaths. I know better. Days pass. People adapt poorly. Without guidance, hesitation returns. But now it is not corrected. Fear grows loud. Then something small happens. My phone vibrates. Once. No notification. Just the sensation. I freeze. The calendar does not open. The recording app stays closed. But the feeling is familiar. Behind me, the air tightens. A breath. Not a command. Not a system. Just presence. I do not turn around. I thought the presence would fade without the system. I was wrong. What collapsed was not the thing behind the phone, only the structure we built around it. The calendar, the schedules, the language of control. Those were scaffolding, useful, temporary. The presence does not need them. Days after the blackout, I begin to notice patterns returning, not on screens, in people. In how crowds thin at certain corners, how conversations pause at the same second across different rooms. Timing exists without tools. It always has. I walk the city and feel it breathing again, slower than before, but deeper, raw, untamed. Without correction, randomness grows teeth. I understand then. The system did not create the presence. It translated it, gave it shape. Before phones, before calendars, before electricity, it existed as instinct, premonition, the feeling of being watched at the wrong moment. People used to call it fate, or God, or luck. The presence was always behind us, whispering not words, but when the phone simply gave it a mouth. At night, I dream of standing in a cave, watching shadows move along stone walls. People around me listen to the dark and know when to step back from fire, when to run, when to stay still. No devices, no reminders, only fear and timing. I wake knowing this was the original interface. The breath returns more often now. Not close, observant. I hear it when I hesitate, when I pause too long before crossing a street. When I look back over my shoulder for no reason, it does not command. It waits. One evening, a stranger stops me. He asks if I feel it too. I do not ask what he means. I nod. He smiles, relieved. People are listening again, he says. That frightens me more than anything, because listening was never the problem. Obedience was. Without the system, there is no filter, no training, no adjustment, only raw influence. I return home and place my phone on the table. It remains dark, but the air behind me thickens. The presence leans closer, not to speak, to listen, and I realize the final truth. The night my phone recorded a voice standing behind me was never about technology. It was the moment I learned the presence had always been there, waiting. I stop pretending that I do not feel it anymore. The truth is, I feel it constantly now, not as fear, not as warning, but as a quiet awareness that never fully fades. The presence has changed shape again, not because it wants to, but because it must. The world no longer runs on schedules strict enough to contain it, and people no longer trust devices the way they once did. Phones still exist, but belief has fractured, and Belief was always the strongest signal. At first, I think the presence will retreat without the system, that it will thin out and dissolve into coincidence again, that humanity will return to stumbling blindly through time without consequence. That hope does not last. I see it in small moments. A woman pauses in the middle of a sentence, eyes unfocused, then changes her words as if correcting something only she noticed. A driver slows suddenly for no reason and avoids an accident that has not happened yet. A child pulls his hand away from a railing seconds before it collapses. No phones, no reminders, just instinct, raw and unfiltered. The presence is no longer standing behind devices. It is standing behind people. That is when I understand the final lesson. The phone was never the danger. It was the leash. Without it, instinct spreads. Without context, without moderation, without restraint, timing becomes contagious. Panic learns faster than reason ever could. Entire crowds begin to move in strange waves. Stop, start, hesitate, surge. Cities feel nervous like animals sensing a distant storm. I walk through it all unseen, unremarked, my role no longer assigned, but assumed. People do not recognize me yet. They adjust around me unconsciously as if something in them knows I matter to the balance, even if they cannot explain why. The presence walks with me now, not behind, not inside, but alongside. It does not speak. It does not command. It observes. It is waiting for a translator, someone willing. One night I returned to the apartment where it all began. The same kitchen counter, the same dull hum of the city outside. I place my phone down knowing it may not respond. For a long moment, nothing happens. Then the screen flickers, not bright, not loud, just enough. The recording app opens. The red dot appears. I feel the presence settle into stillness. This is not control. This is consent. I speak slowly, carefully, aware that whatever I say may be heard far beyond this room. If you can hear this, you are already listening. That means you have felt the pause, the hesitation, the moment where time stretches too thin. Do not be afraid of it, but do not trust it blindly. Instinct without thought becomes chaos. Order without instinct becomes cruelty. The balance matters. I pause, letting the silence work. The presence does not interrupt. It never does anymore. The system you feared was not a prison. It was a filter, a way to keep the voice behind you from shouting, a way to teach timing instead of enforcing it. If the phone lights up and records when you did not ask it to, if you feel breath behind you when no one is there, that does not mean you are chosen. It means you noticed, and noticing is dangerous only if you stop thinking. I end the recording. The red dot disappears. The phone goes dark again. Outside, the city exhales, not in relief, but in rhythm. People move a little more carefully now, not obedient, not controlled, aware. The presence steps back, not gone, never gone. Just quieter, balanced again. Somewhere far away, another person pauses at the right moment, not because they were told to, but because they listened and chose. That is how it should be, and that is why the voice will always stand behind you, waiting. The story ends here. Thank you for watching and listening to the whole story. Please subscribe to the channel channel and turn on the bell to listen to the next stories.